The Garden Gurus Live is brought to you by Garden Express and Troforte. Garden Express are Australia's leading mail ordering service, offering a wide range of quality gardening products. Each week on the Garden Gurus Live, the team at Garden Express will share a weekly offer. So make sure after today's show, you jump online and visit their website.
Troforte is the leading supplier of controlled release fertilisers and micronutrients, and it's committed to delivering environmentally friendly solutions for your garden. Each week we'll be giving away a Troforte prize pack valued at $250. Simply follow, like and comment the weekly code word on Troforte's Facebook page.
Well, hello, how are you going? Good morning, it's great to have you with us. I'm Trevor Cochrane, and we've obviously got the Garden Gurus Live happening today. You can see I'm back in our studios here in Subiaco in Western Australia. Shaylee, our producer's unwell today, but what a trooper. She's at home and producing remotely for us, which is just fantastic. It's really good. So I was just having a quick look around at the weather, actually. It's quite unusual weather we've got sitting around the country, quite cool, and we'll probably have an offer for you not too far down the line with regards to ways to get your plants through. Now the weather is in Adelaide 21 and cloudy, Hobart 15 degrees, cloudy, Canberra quite a chilly 17. The cloud will actually make a bit of difference for those of you, so you're not going to get frosts, which is great, and we're certainly not cold enough at night to get there yet. But as soon as we get some of those clear nights, we're going to have to watch it. Brisbane, 25. Melbourne, 15 degrees, partly cloudy. Sydney is 21 degrees, partly cloudy. Darwin is 31. And, of course, Perth, well, it's sunny. We had 30 millimetres of rain on Wednesday. Got a bit of a wet week coming up too. So it's quite interesting, actually. We've got about 90 millimetres due in the next 3 or 4 days from basically Sunday. So yeah, for those of you out there gardening, this is now a genuine change in the weather. There's things that you should be doing and things you should be thinking about doing that we can discuss today. Now, of course, the show is all about answering your gardening questions. And most importantly, and I think this is one of those things that you need to make sure you do, when you ask those questions, make sure you share where you're from, okay? Really important, state, town or city. It makes the world of difference, as you can see from the weather I've just read out. It does vary dramatically right across Australia. Now, I think probably a couple of things to remember. We'll have the Troforte code word for you just towards the end of the show. Remember, this is a chance to get $250 worth of Troforte products, and that'll keep your garden fed for the next 12 months, guaranteed. On top of that, we've got $50 Garden Express gift voucher, which is very, very, very popular, and it's for the best questions. So let's have a bit of a look here. All right, we've got questions coming through left, right, and centre. Maybe before we go to those questions, I might just ask Rowan from Garden Express if he can pop in and join us, because we're talking about cooler weather, and cooler weather can bring on some real challenges. Biggest challenge being frost damage, and if it's too cold, plants won't grow. So I'm hoping that we might be able to have Rowan join. No, there he is. G'day, mate. How are you?
Yeah, I'm really well, mate. How are you?
Very, very good. We just talking about weather. We've actually got clear skies here today, but I was just talking about it's cooled right down across the country at the moment, and I am doing something that's a little out of season. I'm growing some potatoes. Trying some of those new varieties that we talked about. They've just got their little buds, so getting them into the ground now is not a bad idea where I live, because it doesn't get that frozen cold, but it is a bit of a challenge. And wherever you can, if you can manipulate the environment a little bit by protecting plants, it makes a big difference. And you guys know how to help people out with that, don't you?
We sure do. I mean, obviously as commercial growers and growers, greenhouses are the way to go, garden tunnels are the way to go. So what we've done is we've put together some fantastic garden tunnels for the home user.
Okay.
They're about 3 meters long. Well, they are exactly 3 meters long.
Yep.
600 wide by 45 high. So they're really good size. You can see them there in the vision.
Yep. That's in my garden too, by the way, Rowan.
Shade mesh, a polytunnel, and also a fleece, which we can go into.
Yeah, actually, that's not in my garden. I thought that was the me setting mine up this season, but it's not. That's actually Bonnie Marie doing hers. Yeah.
Mm.
It's a really important thing because it does get you off to the right start, with particularly when you're growing things from seed. I love growing stuff from seed, but the first 2 or 3 weeks are really vitally important. And those fleece tunnels are really good because they actually keep the plants protected, most importantly, but more importantly, they improve the microclimate in around those evolving seedlings as they develop and start to get their root systems established. And getting your plants off to the best possible start is the key.
Yeah, absolutely. And you don't necessarily see those fleece ones around in the marketplace as much as you do, say, a poly or a shade tunnel.
Yep.
So when we were putting this together, we wanted to make sure that people could have a tunnel for all types of climates.
Yep.
And give plants the best start that they possibly can. Keep the
and actually, you just hit the nail on the head. Not everybody's enjoying cool weather. There's quite a bit of warm weather north, and Mick has just said, what about us up in the tropics? We're looking to try and protect our plants this time of the year. And that's where the shade tunnel comes in really handy.
Yeah, it does. So obviously for the sun, but it also protects from wind and obviously pests, birds and small animals and stuff getting into your crops. So there is a tunnel for all needs there. And normally these are $29.90, which is a great price off the bat. You see a similar thing to the ones that we're offering, $40 upwards. So even at $29, it's a real steal. But for Garden Gurus viewers, we've put the individual tunnels down to $22.40, which is 25% saving.
That's a big saving. That's solid because $30 is the standard rate for these things. So that's a big discount, mate. Now. That's for any one of the individuals?
Yeah, so that's their individual price. And then if you wanted to go ahead and get all 3 of them, we've got a combo deal where you can get all 3 for just $60, which evaluates out to a 30% saving.
Again, that's right. So it's down to $20 a tunnel if you take all 3. Pretty good deal, Rowan. Now, of course, the great thing about Garden Express is that you can shop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and just jump online and order them. If it's anything like last week's offer, we talked about Varroas, the rock rhododendrons. I got in early to make sure I got mine. It was just as well, wasn't it?
It was. They sold out really quickly. We sold a fair few off the back of this show, but as soon as it went to air, they were gone. So I think by the Monday morning, pretty much all gone. I think there was only a couple of varieties left.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look,
we do have really good stocks of these though. So there's you're unlikely to miss out, but jump on. With the tunnels, it's worth noting they are 3 meters. They're all one piece, so just concertina's out. So it's not like you have to thread hoops or anything like that. It comes in one piece. Pull it out, peg it in, and it's ready to go.
Yeah, these are the easiest things to do. They really do. You literally pull it out in 5 seconds. It doesn't take very much at all. So, and of course, they must pack down very well for shipping as well. So, if people place their order now, they'll have them delivered in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah. They if they place it now online, gardenexpress.com.au. There's a big banner on the homepage. It'll take you straight to the offer. We will get them out to them probably as quickly as early as next week. We're pretty much on top of all of our orders at the moment, which is great.
Okay.
They'll go out pretty instantly, and people could potentially have them by the end of next week.
Yes, well, that's great news, mate. Look, thanks very much, Rowan. gardenexpress.com.au, place to get all your goodies, and there's a lot of other things that are online there. I know we're not going to talk about it today in detail, but I know that the peonies are just coming out now. now's the time to get your hand on those. That's worth just checking the website out, right?
Yeah, jump online. There's a whole heap of new stuff. There's obviously roses we've talked about in the past, but peonies have just come on. They never last long. They're always super popular. So yeah, jump on. There's a bit of fresh produce coming along now, and not too far away we'll be into bare root trees, both ornamental and fruit. So yeah, it's an exciting time. Winter, although everything's cooling down, it's still a very exciting time for us around Garden Express.
Well, Rowan, Jeanette Miller says, cheers, Rowan. That's a good deal. So there you go. You got people commenting. So there's probably a few people jumping online to make sure they don't miss out. Hey, thanks for joining us again this morning, mate.
Always a pleasure, mate. Look forward to catching up next week.
All right. We've got millions of questions coming through today. It's going to be a busy day. And that's my job, of course, is to answer all of your questions. I'm going to scroll through. There's a lot of people just saying hello. Hello. Thanks for joining us. Really appreciate it. We're really busy this morning. There are so many questions coming through. Now, I think we'll go straight to Melbourne. Speaking of places where things are a little bit cooler at the moment. Rhonda, now she has asked us about her forced tulips in a pot. The gift for Mother's Day, dying back, how, I think you've asked us this before. And you know what? The simple thing with them is that just let them die back. It's kind of, they're out of whack. They've come from the Northern Hemisphere. So they just need to basically just winter through, and they'll probably, hopefully they'll stay that way. You can take them out of the soil come sort of springtime and then keep them dry and plant a little bit later, and you'll probably start to get a normal season for the second year round. Pommy Luita, this is a good question, Pommy. It's the second time I've been asked about this recently. Has anybody ever heard of electroculture? Now, believe it or not, it's been around for about 100 years, and it's this theory that plants can grow better if we're applying an electrical charge into the soil. Now, it's obviously something you have to be very careful with, but it's an interesting concept. There's certainly no documented evidence that this makes any difference at all to plants' growth. But it is an interesting concept because, let's face it, we are a product of energy. Energy floats all around us. Radio waves moving through the air. It's a really different way of kind of thinking that maybe there's other things that help plants with their, I suppose, health and general growth. And I don't know what to say to you other than, I think. I think maybe the best thing to do is probably just give it a try and let us know how you go. Rowan just gave me a little tip, just by the way, on the tulips in the pot. He said, make sure you do put them into the ground. And I should have said that. It's a really good point. So into the ground, then lift them when you would normally be lifting your bulbs a bit later in the year. I know David told me from David Van Berkel from Garden Express that it's actually in November when the flower buds set in the bulbs. So not when you're buying your bulbs, don't think you have to leave them in the crisper. Believe it or not, that is a bit of a fallacy, and it's one that I always thought as well. But you live and learn every single day, and that knowledge was great from David, and that's what you get when you're dealing with a wonderful family business like Garden Express. Thanks, Rowan, for that. Let's keep rolling along. Dawn Ellison. Bid Willie, I think it is, near Penrith in Sydney. Good morning, all. I've got a big Brazilian red cloak and would love to grow some more. There's a special way to get cuttings to grow. That's a really good question. I don't know a lot about the Brazilian red cloak. I think what we might do is open it to the rest of you. If there's anybody out there that's growing them or has done it, I think probably there's a few different ways, but I would suspect that there's a few of you out there that have actually done it. It's certainly not a plant that I've grown before. So very good question. Thanks, Dawn. I will do some research and come back to you next week. I'll make sure I make a note of that for you too. It's not often you guys get me, but you got me there, Dawn. Well done. Now, should mention that chili thrip is something that some people get quite upset about, quite concerned. It does a lot of damage to roses. It's predominantly out of control in Western Australia at the moment. However, the way Mother Nature works is there are predatory insects that will eventually predate that particular pest, and we're starting to see a bit of a balance in the cycle, so we're not seeing damage quite as severe in a lot of cases. In some areas where the predators haven't built up, it's still a big problem. The good news is there's no point in spraying chili thrip right at the moment anyway, and the reason is that they are a warmer climate thrip, and they tend to go down into the soil this time of the year. Now, you could try and treat the soil if you wanted to, but it's not really any point. They'll be dormant, they'll be laying eggs, and that's all they're doing. There's no damage being done to your roses right at the moment. It'll be when the new growth starts to emerge in the spring, and that's when you need to think about predatory mites, which is something that will control these. Or alternatively, there are some other treatments, things like chemicals, etc., which I would use as a second option. I'd be trying to build up the balance of nature if you could. Good morning, Carla. Nice to have you join us. Let's have a bit of a look through here. Oh, hang on. Shaylee sent me a question in two parts, and the first part came from Katie Rolfe. Now, Katie, you're in Murrumbateman. I hope I got that right. Murrumbateman. I've never been there in New South Wales. My 8-year-old apricot tree has slowly stopped fruiting, with the last 3 years producing 2 apricots, both which came last year, but they never ripened. Now, I've kept up pruning each year, and I feed it with fruit-specific fertiliser. You're doing all the right things. Some apricots require cross-pollination, and it would feel odd that you could grow one and not have one that's within the neighbourhood that would be cross-pollinating through bee activity. Sounds very strange. Really, the thing is, you should be getting a lot of flowering. And you've said you've had to remove a couple of big dead branches last year too, and you've given it a much needed trim. Don't prune it during the winter is going to be my advice to you. I think you might want to leave it and only prune it during the summer after you've harvested crops. I suspect you might be cutting some of the flowering wood off if you're pruning during the winter. So let's have a bit of a think about that one. That's certainly my advice. Certainly when you're pruning certain deciduous trees, those that fruit off first year growth, if you go pruning that off, you're going to impact your crops. And there's a lot of people who I know who have been quite hard with their Pinkerbell apples, only to find out they don't get any fruit, and that's because that's fruiting off first year growth as well, whereas most apple trees do produce their fruit off second year growth, which is why you would prune them at the end of winter. Hopefully that helps. Tyson, nice to have you join us. Tyson Sanders is from Baronia in Victoria. Can I plant rhubarb in the ground? Yes, you can. Ground, wine barrels, pots, doesn't matter, Tyson. Interestingly, rhubarb is going dormant now in the cold weather. So if you're getting your hands on some decent corms at your local garden centre, that's fantastic. If you're buying small plants, just leave them in their small pots until we get into some warmer weather. That will make a big difference. All right, let's keep moving. We'll come to Perth. Okay, we've been in Melbourne. We've been on the East Coast. We're back in Perth. The weather is beautiful. Lisa Pears has asked a question. She's got a straggly hibiscus. Can I prune it now, hard, and when is the best time? Okay, a couple of things. Hibiscus are really interesting plants. They come from all over the world, including from Australia. So if it's one of the one of the evergreen varieties from Australia, the answer is yes, prune them, give them a good prune now. If it's one of the tropicals, like the cottonwood, that's okay too. But if it's a Hawaiian hibiscus, that's those ones with those beautiful big flowers, don't prune them in the middle of winter. Let them just get through to the end of winter, unless there's some dieback, and then give them a prune as you just coming into the warmer season. A feed and pruning a Hawaiian hibiscus then will be fantastic. And Hawaiian hibiscus, by the way, their best month of flowering is generally June, strangely enough. So hopefully that helps, Lisa. I'm not sure, and if you're not sure what your plant is, then please send us a photograph. That really does help me an awful lot too. Leo Vanderpoel, hello. Can you tell me how often buffalo grass should be watered in the winter months when there is no rain? Okay, well, to be quite honest, there should be enough soil moisture, as a general comment, for your turf not to be watered at all during the winter. But it depends where you are, Leo, and you haven't told me, so I'm not 100% sure. If you are in the north of Australia, it may well be problematic. And so I think that we just need to be a little bit on the careful side with regards to watering. If you are in the north and it's still relatively warm, you're getting those 25-degree days that Brisbane's enjoying, then yeah, you're still going to need to have to do a bit of hand watering occasionally, but not a lot. Don't go giving them too much. And for all of those who don't know, generally the 1st of June is the cut-off point where you turn your sprinklers off and you just leave your sprinklers off through the winter months. Watch out if you're not getting rainfall, but as a general comment, pretty much everywhere in Australia, with the exception of the very top end, is getting regular rainfall this time of the year. Your lawns don't need it, your gardens don't need it. There's enough soil moisture level, enough moisture in the air, your plants will be fine. Okay, Carol Bush, again, I'm not sure where you are, Carol. Oh, yes, I am. You're down the bottom. You're in Riverton in WA. Can you grow potatoes that have shoots on them that you haven't used in the pantry? And what soil should you add? Well, probably those ones are best to be grown in pots. So pop them into a pot. So get a large pot, maybe a 300 ml pot. Put a layer of potting mix in there and pop your potatoes in the bottom. Then as they start to grow, put a little bit of soil on top. Then as they start to grow out of that, a little bit more soil as the shoots go up. And what you should find is all the way up, it'll keep producing potatoes. And you'll just have this pot full of potatoes come springtime. And being in a pot tends to be a little warmer with solar radiation. So pretty good way to go. So the answer is yes, that's how I would do it. Staying in Perth, Hammersley, Fiona Goodridge, hello. My roses are suffering badly from everything, mainly chili thrips. The leaves are quite grey overall and look miserable. Look, do you know what, Fiona? Don't worry. Your roses are going dormant. Chili thrips also gone dormant. All you're seeing is the damage that was done during the season. So the important thing is at the beginning of the season, you're proactive and you actually treat the chili thrip early on. Now, as I said, predatory insects, so beneficial insects, bringing them into your garden, you can certainly do that. And if you're not sure about where to get them, thegoodbug.com.au, I think it is, or do a Google. Now, as far as the existing plants go, the important thing is going to be to make sure that you give them a feed probably around about August as things start to warm and they start to grow out, just to give them a bit of a push along. Hopefully that helps. Okay, Linda McFarlane, your parents live in Ulladulla in New South Wales. You've tried David Gray's for winter grass, but it keeps clogging up the sprayer, no matter how they try to dissolve it. Do you have a tip for using that? Now, that's really, really unusual. I always mix it first in a bucket. So I completely dissolve it in a half bucket of water. And I've never had that problem. So once it's dissolved in the bucket, it goes into the sprayer and then sprayed over the lawn. Of course, you only do it on a dry day, and then you'll end up in a situation where it'll kill off the winter grass. But the only thing I can assume is that it's an old packet, and the crystals are just not dissolving properly. Hopefully that helps. Okay, let's have a bit of a look here. Oh, we have got an interesting one here. This is from Albert Inton in East Cannington. Now, he's given us some photos. I'm not sure whether Shaylee's going to be able to get them up for us to have a look. Oh yeah, there we go. This is interesting. How to fix this contorted Camellia sasanqua. Its trunk, it's been growing healthy for the last 1 year in the garden, giving abundant flowers, but I'd like to have an upright tree. It definitely is laying over, isn't it? And it's a bit unusual. They should be growing upwards. You can see it's a narrow pathway, so light will be coming down from the top. It should be going upwards. The only thing I can suggest you do is staking. And there's nothing wrong with that. You maybe treat it a little bit like a espalier and grow it so that it sort of grows across if it's got this natural spreading habit, and sometimes some plants do. Maybe you treat it more like something you would espalier. Unusual. That's a really good question, Albert. You are definitely in the running for our $50 Garden Express online shopping voucher. That is for sure. That's a good question. All right, now I'm going to keep rolling down. Shaylee is helping me out despite her suffering. Brave girl she is. Let's take a look here. J. John, you're in Victoria. Again, photos attached. What is the marking on my apricot leaves? Okay, so there's a couple of things that affect apricots. Shot hole is one of them, and they can get a rust. And you can see these are old leaves. The interesting thing is, don't worry about it because those leaves are all going to drop. The thing with it is that if you let them drop and you sit and let them compost there, this same pest, which is a bacterial or fungal pest, is going to come back up into the tree. So I would be waiting till those leaves drop, and then I would rake them up and I would probably burn them, or I would bundle them up in a plastic bag, send them off for burying somewhere, because they do have this disease and that disease is going to be problematic. Hopefully we've solved that problem. Colleen Ford, you're in Foster in New South Wales. Hello, wanted to talk about my orchid. When and how should I fertilise my orchid? How do I plant as a cutting from an orchid? Okay, well, there's not too many orchids that'll grow from cutting. I should say that right up front. The most varieties are actually that we get these days are split, so division. If you've got a dendrobium cane orchid, you can definitely cut those, or a crucifix orchid. They all have aerial roots, so you'll be able to pop them straight into some orchid mix and they'll go very well. As far as feeding goes, really what you want to do is feed them in the latter part of the year. So October, November, December, January and February. Good months to be feeding them with a very high K fertilizer. That's one of those fertilizers that promotes very well flowering and fruit also in fruiting plants. My suggestion would be that it depends all on the orchid that you have. One thing that most people don't realize is that orchids are often considered to be very delicate, but in actual fact, they're the most prolific flowering plant family on the planet. There are more species of orchids than there are of any other genuses out there of that family. Pretty fascinating. Okay, where are we sitting? We're at 9:26. We've got half an hour to go. Let's have a bit of a look. Let's come back to WA for a moment. Pingelly is in WA South. It's a beautiful part of the world. Jeanette Miller has written into us, and she's noticed that her fruit trees have got splitting bark in the trunks with the odd sap coming through. Is this normal? It depends on the type. Often that occurs because there's a lot of moisture coming through the plant. Sometimes there's a bacterial infection you can get of certain types of fruit trees, deciduous fruit trees. If you are unsure, the best thing you could do is, one, send us a photograph. Two, if you're unsure, you can give it you can create a paste using copper oxychloride. Copper oxychloride. It is often sold as Bordeaux, so there's a Bordeaux mixture of copper oxychloride, or Coside, which is cupric hydroxide. It's a different type of copper. Both of them can be made into a paste and rubbed, literally, use gloves obviously, mix it up, then rub it up and down the stem where that scarring, where that splitting is occurring, and that should clear off any bacteria that are coming through. Hopefully that helps. Let's go to Geelong, which will be a little bit on the cooler side. Melissa Peters, hello. In December, you planted a buffalo turf. It's now got weeds popping up through it. Can't upload a photo in chat, but it looks similar to clover. Probably is clover. And what's the best way to get rid of the weed without damaging the turf? And the simple answer is, with the broadleaf weeds, you can either use a hose-on weed and feed sprayer, or you can mow the lawn twice a week, keeping it pretty low, and that'll take the clovers out pretty quickly. So probably mowing is my preferred option, but it's up to you. If you want to do the weed and feed thing, go for it. All right, where are we next? Graham Trishaw from Melbourne. They've got a thick buffalo grass, clover weed coming through, weed and feed. I guess same thing. It's exactly the same answer. So don't worry. It's obviously all happening in Melbourne with regards to that. I think that I think that's one of those things we need to be thinking about all the time, and that is how we control weeds in the garden. This is the time of the year to be mulching your garden. This is the time to be mowing on a regular basis, and not low. You don't need to mow low, you just need to mow regularly. And if you do that, you'll take out most of those broadleaf weeds that do emerge this time of the year. Okay, let's have a bit of a look here. Got another great question coming out of Victoria. Jacqueline Ryder, let me have a look here. This is interesting. Actually, it's Riddler. I apologise, from Lead Court in Victoria. I know sea salt's good, but I use trace element mixture. That is incredible. It has all the trace elements that are not usually replenished naturally, only 10 mils to a litre every month, and great for stimulating struggling plants. Struggling mature trees. I think this is a two-part question, or two-part. And your tomatoes were monsters. It's actually a really good point. What you're doing here is you're sharing stuff, and we are a community. So this is a chance for us all to do that. It's important you understand the difference between what sea sol is and what trace elements are. Sea sol is literally plant hormones. Only way to describe it is plant chemicals. Seaweed is rich in it. It is also generally rich in minerals, albeit there's no fertilizing element sitting in sea sol. It is purely a soil tonic. It's great for plants' roots. It's great for getting the soil healthy, and it's great for helping plants out through stressful periods of time. Those hormones do all sorts of wonderful things, but it is not a fertilizer. Trace elements are vitally important, and this is where your point comes in. You know what? When we grow plants, the plants take those trace elements out. Now, if we're growing vegetables or we're growing flowers and we're cutting the flowers and taking them away, and we're not composting those things and putting them back into the garden, there's no cycle of those minerals going back into the soil. So the soil will start depleting. Now, this is a real problem, because when you're growing vegetables, you mentioned tomatoes here, but tomatoes are really important in everybody's health, but particularly for men. Now, making sure that those tomatoes are rich, and I mean nutritionally rich in the soil and in the plant, is critical. Otherwise, we end up having to start taking things like, calcium tablets or magnesium tablets or iron tablets. And that's because where those plants that are in our diet are growing, they just don't have enough of that in there. So no matter what we eat, we're not getting enough of that into our diet, so we need to be supplementing, which is not the most ideal scenario. The ideal scenario is to be getting it naturally through the plants, through the ground, through the soil, and that's why you would add trace elements. So trace element application once a month is probably on the heavy side. I would suggest that probably twice a year is ideal. That's just my view. But making sure that you're getting fertilizers that are rich in trace elements is also vitally important. And that's where, fertilizers like Trevor, what we call biomineral technologies or fertilizers, is going to change everything for us, because it improves the soil microbial life. But at the same time, these mineral fertilizers are complex in their mineral supply. It's not just nitrogen that is being provided, which is what used to happen with the old-fashioned fertilizers. Okay, let's keep rolling along. I've got, if I can. Here we go. Shaylee has sent me through this one. It's come from Ann Turner. You're in Valley View, South Australia. Photos attached. Thank you. Oh, let's have a look here. What have we got? I recently bought 2 black elephant ears. What's going wrong? Can you tell me? Can you help? Should I put them together in the same pot? The leaves are dying. I've never had any issues before. And I've got to be honest, they're not happy. Now, interestingly enough, excuse me, we've just launched the Garden Gurus in Singapore, and I was watching a story that Sandy, one of the presenters up there, has done. He's done this great story on alocasias or calocaceae, which are the things like some of these plants that we're talking about here, being arum lilies or elephant ears or any of that family, and also caladiums, which are different plants again, but both have a common need. And one is really good soil moisture. Second one is reasonably good levels of light. And there is a bit of a habit for alocasias or calocaceae, the black elephant ears in this particular instance, of kind of going into a bit of a dormancy if there's not enough light. That black foliage, if you've got rich green foliage, it's a different story, because rich green foliage will make a big difference with regards to the amount of chlorophyll and then the amount of energy generated. But black foliage in dark locations tends to start to disappear. And I think you've got them in a spot that's not bright enough just at the moment, is the answer to your question. I wouldn't put them in pots. I wouldn't transplant them. I would put them in a bright sunny spot, and then I would sort of have a bit of a think about maybe giving them a bit of a feed. I am going to do something a little bit radical. I'm going to disappear for a second. Only a second though. Excuse me. I don't have my right hand lady on hand with me today, so I'm just conscious of that light streaming through here and my halo being washed out. Don't say anything, please, about my halo. All right, let's keep rolling along. Linda McFarlane, I just bought a couple of kangaroo paws and a woolly bush, but they're not in good soil. Is it okay to put them into a native mix now, or should you wait until spring? Actually, now's the time to do it, Linda. Get them into a nice native plant potting mix. You'll do really well. There's a great one from the guys at Osmocote. They do have one, so hopefully that helps. Really, really cool. Really cool plant. Now, we'll keep rolling along because there are a lot of questions sitting in here. And let me have a look. We've got one here from Di Blundell. Why are Thai constellations so expensive? Only because they're so rare. Once you get them growing, you can kind of split them up and get lots of them. But at the moment, I think to just buy the bulbs, it's around $100 or so. Di, it's a really good question. Like, one of the things I've learned with our Singapore show is just how crazy people can be over plants. There are some plants at the moment that are fetching somewhere between $1,500 and 15,000 Sing dollars that are indoor plants, and most of them are pretty easy plants to grow, albeit they take a little bit of time. So really cool, really cool kind of concept and idea. Let's keep rolling along. Denise Bunker, you're in Warnbro. Warnbro's in WA, actually. It's a coastal suburb south of Perth. Very alkaline soils, very deep sandy soils. You'd like to be successful in growing the purple native hibiscus. You've killed 3. Any idea what I'm doing wrong? You know what I would do, Denise? If you want to have success with this particular plant, I would buy some bags of Soil Solver. It's a bit of a WA product. I think it is available in some of the other states. It's kaolin clay with a mixture of silt and rock minerals. But what it does in sandy soils is it binds the soil together. So it's kind of, we're changing the soil structure and turning it into loam. And it's really, really good for these kinds of plants that, believe it or not, do want free draining soils, but don't want to dry out. They will not handle the summer months very well at all. So I'd grab some Soil Solver. You can Google it online. I'm pretty sure it's soilsolver.com.au. Really, really good stuff. I think we might just stay in Perth for one more question at least. We've got Tahani Gowda in Perth. Should I plant my chrysanthemums I received for Mother's Day into bigger pots and plant them in the ground and just leave them? I wouldn't leave them in the growers' pots. They will definitely want now to be going into either the ground or into some larger pots. And if you've got lots of pots, then sure, grow them that way. They will love it. They'll do very, very well. If you've just got a garden bed where you'd like to get a bit of a ground cover effect going, they will spread out and sucker up from that and fill you with lots of Mother's Day cheer come next Mother's Day, next May. So let them grow their way through. I would suggest you put them in the ground. Best way to go. Okay, let's have a look here. The next one. This is a good one. This is our good friend Glenn Miller. In fact, Glenn, I think, recently won a prize as well. Congratulations, Glenn. Big question. Bought some great bulbs from Garden Express, and we're so excited. We're the first-time bulb planters. Okay, this is your first-up effort. Bought some, amongst others, mix Spraxias and Grape Hyacinth Blue. Planted them a week ago in 40-centimetre pots, according to the directions. Okay, now, where are we going with this? You've got them in a spot where they've got morning and a little bit of afternoon sun. You're on the Gold Coast, I remember that. Yesterday we noticed shoots popping up, and we were under the impression that they wouldn't appear until spring. Have we done anything wrong? Can we leave them to keep growing? Actually, mine are doing exactly the same thing. I've got them on the steps of my house, and they're all popping up in pots at the moment. And that's okay. That's perfectly fine. They will flower in the winter, early spring, and that's quite natural. So when you finish this year and you want to put them, if you want to put them into a garden, or if you're just going to leave them in pots, you'll find that they'll probably naturally come back a bit later next year. But this is all pretty much normal. Don't worry, just enjoy it. It's a great, there's a couple of really good varieties sitting there, so that's really good. Vinette Ainsberg from Ballanjura, we actually come back to WA again. My multi-grafted stone fruit tree is flowering. Do I leave it alone? Leave it alone, Vinette. We had a bit of a weird spell. So we were getting really cool during April. Beginning of May, we started off with lots of rain. I thought, oh, we're going to have a very wet start to the winter. And then it didn't rain in Perth for pretty much most of May, just towards the end. So Perth only had about 25% of its May average rainfall, which is very low. Now, that can cause a bit of a shock, a triggering, if you like, of some of these deciduous plants, particularly deciduous fruit trees, to push out a bit of flower. They're not going to produce fruit from it, but they'll stop flowering and they'll still have some flower for the springtime. So don't worry too much. I think it's okay. Let's head north to Queensland. And Hilary Holland, hello, thank you. You're in Cairns. I need to clean my brick pavers as they've got black mold on them, and I don't want to hurt my cattle plants in the garden from runoff of chemicals. Any ideas? Actually, Hilary, I didn't realise how grubby my steps and my pavers were at home. And I did a story for Still. They've got a high pressure sprayer. And man, you need to Google it on the gardengurus.tv. You'll be able to see the story. It's the Still high pressure sprayer. What an incredible difference. They were like brand new, and I couldn't believe the black mold and scum that was there. I wasn't really seeing it until I started spraying it off using this sprayer. And it's a really effective way to do it. Of course, no chemicals. That's a great thing. There are some attachments with this, so you can put things like soap suds and things to wash windows down or wash walls down as well. So quite a handy tool if you've got a bit of room there. And it's your local Still dealer, so you'll just need to probably Google whoever's closest to you if you want to go and have a look. Good way to go. There we go. Now, Julie Collard was staying in Queensland. She sent us some photos. As a beginner gardener, should I cut off one of these branches so there's only one main trunk? And the answer is probably no. I think I would leave it as it is for this year at least. Still a small tree. Can't quite tell you exactly what it is from this distance. It looks like a maple to me. But you can prune them a little bit further down the line, let them get their root system really established, and then hit them hard with a bit of pruning for shape a bit further down the line. I don't think those side branches are going to grow quicker than the top of the tree. The tree will continue to maintain its shape. It just would have been a low branching tree, and if you don't mind that, then it's fantastic. If you want it to be more upright, well, then I would take them off, but not this winter. I would wait to the following winter when they've dropped their leaves. Then it's just a little bit too small and you want to give it some time to grow. Okay, staying in Queensland. We're on fire in Queensland today. Everybody up there is asking questions. This is great. You're in Morays Field in Queensland. Trevor Hartwig, what's the best fertiliser for strawberries to bear fruit, please? Well, of course, you know that most strawberries, they will start producing, they'll be producing flowers in the next 4 weeks, and then they'll flower continually for a period of time, producing a lot of fruit over the cooler months, if you can describe that as cooler. If you're in southwest Queensland, fair enough. The fertiliser you use to support that is a liquid fertiliser, ideally, that's very high in K. That's potassium. That encourages the flower and fruit development. And there's a few options out there. There's that liquid. I think I've got the liquid Troforte up there, but that's the lawn food version. There is a liquid Troforte, which is pretty darn good for this as well, and it improves your soil biology. I would probably suggest you give that a try. See how you go. All right. Jan Carr in Tasmania. That's great. Okay. Let's have a bit of a look here. Could Could you tell me why the foliage of my hydrangeas has brown spots? Because it should be dropping its foliage about now. Hydrangeas are deciduous, Jan, so now you will see brown spots or purple spots, and then you'll see the leaves drop, and there's nothing wrong with that. It's exactly how Mother Nature is at her very best. Leanne Hackling is in the Sunshine Coast in Queensland. Hi, I wanted to see if Trevor can have a look at my rose to let me know what's wrong with it. Guess what? There is a problem. It's going dormant. This is meant to happen this time of the year, Leanne. There's nothing wrong with this rose. It should be slowly dropping its foliage at the moment, turning yellow. If you are feeding it at the moment, you're probably forcing it to try and keep growing a little bit. So you might have some new fresh growth at the top. Don't feed it. Let it go dormant. Let it rest. This is how Mother Nature rests for many of these deciduous plants. And you don't need to be feeding it. Don't feed it again until August, I would suggest. And probably give it a bit of a prune back now too. It's looking a little bit disheveled. You could put it into a slightly larger pot if you wanted to, or you could knock a little bit of the old soil off the root system. Don't damage the roots too badly. Just knock it out, put some fresh soil in. Come August, you will end up with the most fantastic growth and results. So that's the trick. Okay, Marita, Dryden, Eddie, you've got two mock oranges shrubs, okay? They're in large planters. They're 2 years old and they've been doing exceptionally well until last week when one has just dropped 90% of its leaves, almost overnight. It still seems to be alive. It won't be for much longer. I suspect that what you've got is a blocked drainage hole. This is something that's quite common with these plants. They hate that situation and they have a habit of blocking the holes up with their roots. So sooner or later they kill themselves effectively. So it might be worthwhile pulling it out of the pot, out of the big planter, knocking a little bit of soil off around the roots, not too much, put a bit of fresh soil in, give it a really good drench with sea salt, make sure it's raised up off the ground so water is flowing through, and it might just come back. You'll probably still have to prune the tips around the outside, but then you should see new growth buds appear fairly quickly after that. Hopefully that helps you out. Nikki Probert, you're in Tasmania. Great to have people from Tassie joining us. It's been extremely wet already this year. Our backyard is very shaded and a lot of the grass is now dirt. There's something we can do, or a different variety of grass I should plant, please. Nikki, grass needs to have a minimum of 8 hours of direct sunlight a day. Just really important that you have full sun over your lawn. If you've got lots and lots of different kinds of, trees that are quite, particularly the evergreen, that are quite dense with their foliage around the outside, you're going to struggle for a period of time. So can I suggest a couple of alternatives? I have some similar conditions. In those locations, I go and plant dichondra. It's called kidney weed or dichondra, little round leaf ground cover, and it'll cover that area really, really well. It loves wet locations. There are two other alternatives. There's a really wonderful peppermint mint that you can get that's a ground cover form. So you sort of plant it out and it spreads over. As long as you mow it just like you would the lawn, it'll spread over. It's dark green. But the best thing about it is when you walk over it, you obviously get that wonderful smell, that minty smell. And Pratia, it's another little ground cover that could also be an alternative for you for those conditions. I think the Moroccan mint might be one that you could consider as well. Another one, beautifully fragrant, wonderful in shady spots, not so good in hot, dry spots. So sounds like it's a change. You need to move away from traditional lawn varieties and into what's more of a ground cover variety for those shady spots. Tyson's just going to ask us a quick question about strawberries. Strawberries, now's the time to be thinking about them in the next 2 weeks. I would say Rowan Peterson, I should say. Rowan Butler's my other mate. Peterson from Garden Express is going to, he'll come up with some special offer on strawberries because we're coming into that season, and you buy them bare rooted and they'll literally mail them out to you. And the trick is, honestly, I believe growing strawberries in pots is the best in a home garden environment. It just gives you the ability to keep control of slugs and snails, which tend to damage the fruit. And the trick with strawberries, feed them on a regular basis. And I mean, best results will come from a weekly liquid feed And you could use anything from Power Feed right through to the Troforte product. Troforte shouldn't be used on a weekly basis, but certainly it's a wonderful fertilizer, so maybe even a combined effort with those. All right, we've got down to our last 10 minutes, and I can't believe it. They fly as we go along. Now, there is a great little, I've got a good one coming up here. This is great. This is from Chrissy at Henry's Morning. I'm not sure where Henry's Morning is, but you've said you're 53, you're currently studying horticulture, you're Cert 3. What type of jobs could I do afterwards? Well, there are so many jobs at the moment, Chrissy, in the horticulture industry. I'm not sure exactly where Henry's Morning is, but I could tell you right now, if you were in Perth and you have a bit of a qualification and a passion for gardens and horticulture, that there are a number of nurseries that would employ you in a flash. They are desperate for labour, for people to come in and work on some of their crops, particularly those that move large volumes. So the herb nurseries, the seedling nurseries, always looking for good people. If you would like some help, send me your details through to info@guruproductions.tv, info@guruproductions.tv. I will send you, or I'll send your details on to one of the nursery and garden industry people around town, see if we can get you some help with some work. Because at 53, you are in the prime of your life and you're about to enter into working in what is one of the most wonderful industries that you could ever work in. They're really good. Okay, let's have a bit of a look. My choco vine, this comes from Fiona Hadley. My choco vine has suffered twice in the last few months. The leaves have withered and died and then regrown. No sign of pests or mold. I'm thinking it's a result from a couple of cold storms. Do choco vines need shelter or high humidity? Great question, Fiona. They'll go dormant during the winter, so they will die back. In fact, your choco should have died back by now. So the answer is, don't worry, don't panic. It's all right. This is meant to happen. It's all natural. But yeah, if they do get a cold spell, you will see them burn off. They are more of a tropical plant than they are a cooler climate plant. Okay, let's have a look. Wendy G, what's the best way to get rid of ants from garden beds? Depends on what type of ants, Wendy. But look, obviously the sprays are very effective with regards to controlling ants. And if you're okay with spraying, then you just want to get one of the ant sprays or granules. However, if you just want to move them on, if they're not, if they're not causing a problem, then a little bit of talcum powder, pick a few dry days, talcum powder out around the outside of the nest. They will go anywhere other than wherever that talcum powder is. So they'll move away, and often they'll move the whole nest if there's a lot of it around. Of course, every time it rains, that'll change everything again. But talcum powder, nice natural way to do it. All right, how are we looking here? Shaylee, you've done a great job remotely managing things as they've flown through today, and there has been lots and lots of great comments. A lot of you saying hello, Melissa Peters, Kerry McClure, good morning to you, and thanks very much for your support. Hannah, you wanted to see, you brought up Bonnie's beautiful new garden that she's building and developing. Bonnie's actually been away. I might give her a call and see if we can get her to tune into one of our sessions. She's been in Europe and looking at the Chelsea Flower Show, going and seeing some of the latest and greatest new varieties of plants. She'll come back a very wise woman, and maybe she'll share some of that wisdom with us. Let's have a look. Plant of the week. Well, my plant of the week, let's have a look at this. Do you know what this is? This is garlic. And with garlic, you get different types. You get white, you get purple. Now, the important thing if you are going to grow garlic at home is you grow garlic that has been grown in Australia. And they have to declare it. If you're buying it from your local supermarket or whatever, you will find that you can get garlic basically like this, and all you do is you just break it open and you take each one of these little bulblets, little plantlets. You've got roots will come out here, shoot will come out there, and come November, if you're planting this weekend, come November, you'll harvest beautiful little garlic cloves like this. So now's the time to be doing it. And that's why I wanted to highlight it. Garlic is so good for us. It's antibacterial, it's antifungal, it's actually a rich source of many minerals and nutrients that we need. And it is a winter crop. So it's one that you want to be planting and growing right now. So that's my plant of the week. I do think that now's the time to get it in. Interestingly enough, if you companion plant it with things like roses that suffer from aphids sometimes in the early spring, you'll find that the garlic will continue to grow. It'll compete along with the rose bushes as they regrow. Whilst they're growing alongside each other, the garlic will repel aphids. And it's very, very good. Even things like chili thrips, just for those people that raise them. We had 2 questions today on chili thrips. Really good to grow garlic in amongst that environment. So plant as much as you can. Try and give it as much room so it's got direct sunlight, and it'll grow. And as I said, about November, it'll flower and start to die back, and that's when you go and harvest it. Certainly, that's what happens in my garden. Or if I forget, it just pops up again this year. So that's the great thing. If you've got relatively warm, free draining soils. All right. We got any more questions? I think we're just about there. No, we've still got a couple. All right. Nicole from Melbourne. Where can I buy cheaper persimmons? They're so expensive. As a tree, they are expensive. The fruit's pretty expensive too. Persimmons are just gorgeous. They're also known as the kaki fruit in Japan, and one of the most beautiful deciduous trees. And when they drop their foliage eventually, often you'll see the fruit just hanging in the tree like lanterns. It's just a gorgeous tree. They're not easy to grow. They do take a little bit of love and care. They like reasonably good soil, but they're not easy to grow as nurserymen grow as well. So they take a little bit more effort, which is why they cost a little bit more. So I don't know, maybe keep your eye out for the Garden Express deals. Might be worthwhile asking Rowan at Garden Express if he can do a deal on persimmons. They really are. Okay, we have one last question for today's show. Heather Cowie, I would like to learn how to graft fruit trees and other plants. Do you know where I could go and learn this craft? I'm in Jandabup in WA. Do you know where you can go and do it? And he does a great job with it. Is a guy named Joe Tassoni, and I think Joe's about to retire, so he'll be a huge loss when he leaves this industry. Tas1 Trees is the company. They're in Midvale. For those of you that live in WA, you'll know where that is. It's just on the outside of the city. And Joe often does examples of pruning, propagation via grafting or budding, and he'll be quite happy to show you and share a little bit of knowledge, I'm sure. Heather, I hope that answers your questions. Wow, what a day. We've had so many questions flow through again. I think we're breaking records every week. We had over 100 comments last week. I wanted to mention that we do have the $250 Troforte giveaway or competition running, and the only way for you to enter is you have to go to the Troforte Facebook page. You click on the link and you answer with the keyword, and that code word this week is harvest. So there you see it on the screen. That's fantastic. Thanks, Shaylee. Harvest, make sure you go to the Troforte Facebook page. Make sure you like it and also share it with your friends. This is, as I said, we're a community. We are all about sharing. Now, Shaylee's got a bit of a question. What's the difference between seed potatoes from nurseries and the ones you buy from the store? Really good question, Shaylee. And coming up on the Garden Gurus this weekend, I have some really good news for you, because there is a great potato story. I'm pretty sure it's this weekend or next weekend on the Garden Gurus. We're coming to the end of the season, the television series here in Australia, and you'll have a chance to see exactly why it is so important that we get seed potatoes. Certified seed potatoes are guaranteed not to have virus in them, which is very important. So getting them from a company, somebody like, say, Garden Express, is ideal. I actually take you into a seed potato growing nursery or farm, and I learned so much with this story. I hope you can tune in and catch it as well. Okay, the hardest thing of the lot, caller of the week. The Camellia Sasanqua was a good story good question from Albert Intan. I'm tempted to go that way, but I'm going to go with Pomme Lulita. Now, Pomme asked a very interesting question. It's completely out there in some ways, but it gets us exploring and thinking. And, we should understand that the world we live in, the atmosphere is alive with energy moving through it. So the thought that maybe electroculture for gardening could be beneficial for plants, it's not that crazy. It's not that strange. There is probably something in it. We just don't know. Anyway, I think that it's going to have to go to Pomme. So $50 Garden Express gift voucher is coming your way. Please contact us after the show. Congratulations. And thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. I think we're just about done. Don't forget, we've got the Garden Gurus this weekend on Channel 9. We'll start to share the tropical series of the Garden Gurus out of Singapore in the next few weeks. I'll let you know when Channel 9 is going to play them on 9 Life. And I think that's just about it for this week. Remember, if you've got any questions, just always become a friend on Facebook. Make sure you're sharing this with your friends. And probably one more thing to keep in mind is if you've got anything that you want to know, our website is an amazing resource. So don't be scared to go and search up things. You can get videos, and of course you can also watch our programs on our YouTube channel as well, or on 9now.com.au. So thanks very much for joining us, and thanks Carolyn and everybody who's saying thanks for another great show. We love bringing this to you each week. We're very grateful to our friends at Trevor and Garden Express for sponsoring us. It allows us to do this every week. And a big thank you to the poor suffering Shaylee, who has tonsillitis and has been producing this from home for me. I think as soon as we finish this, she's going to head off and jump into bed and hopefully recover. I should also mention our friends at the Kalamunda Garden Festival. They've got a big weekend coming up. This Sunday, I believe, is all happening. If you've got any questions, if you live in WA, if you're in Perth, make sure you come up to the hills. It's a great time of the year to come up. Come and check the festival out. It's a great festival. And they've got some amazing speakers from interstate and some incredibly talented locals as well. So make sure you come and stick your head in and check that out in Kalamunda. And I am Trevor Cochrane, and I've run out of things to say. I'm looking forward to seeing you next week for another great episode of the Garden Gurus Live. We'll see you then.